All right. So episode 1.
Episode 1.
I had to get some champagne because you are a very special guest to me. I've kind of always looked up to you, dude.
Tight.
I've always looked at your jiu-jitsu as some of the most influential, the innovative. When it comes down to the Gracie style, you know, the OG type of OG shit, you are OG. What they call you?
Well, I go by Death Burka. That's my artist, internet name, personality. Jiu-Jitsu, they call me Sicario. And then my real name is Nick Frost. So that's most people just call me Nick. But or Burka, the homies call me Burka. The girls call me Nick. That's
girls call you Nick. It's funny because you and I have we have much more of a relative past than and I think we spoke about that last time I went over your place.
Yeah.
Your nice ass penthouse, by the way, which I'm gonna miss. But
no, don't worry, we getting a bigger one. This is just the in between stages. We just had to,
we just had to relocate really quick.
When they flood your apartment after paying $60K a year, you gotta fucking, and then they don't want to do anything nice in return
to help you out. Yeah,
you gotta reassess the situation and reconsider. Like, okay, this is a possibility. So you have to take the precautionary measures for the future.
Yeah.
Because especially when you work out of your home, when you put that much money into rent over a year and then it completely destroys your business, that's a problem, especially one that you've never experienced yet, and you didn't know that was obviously it's possible in theory, but actually going through the whole experience and then understanding oh, okay, I have to be prepared for this situation too in life. So we're in the recalibration phase and making sure that I'm the next place that I choose to spend a lot of money on. There's a level of respect with the management that didn't exist at the place that I was at, but I didn't really understand until the experience happened, because I had no problems with the management. But once that happened, then I learned who they truly were, and then that forced me to reassess the situation. Anyways, but
I'll say this too. I was telling her the other day, we are very jealous of your apartment. We were jealous. I was telling her, because last time I went over, it was a year ago. She brought it up to me, and she was like, "Let's move here." And I was like, "That's funny that you say that, because my friend Nick, he lives there." She was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I'm we were just so jealous, because that's exactly where we wanted to move. But it's funny. It's funny. Going back to what I was saying though, is our lives were a lot more relative than we knew.
Yeah. Just
because of our skateboarding history, or just the past.
Yeah.
It goes back to when I was 14, 13 years old. That's when we were kind of skating at Rialto Skate Park. I don't know if you're from there though. Are you from?
No, I'm originally from Santa Barbara. So I moved down to Los Angeles in 2007 and started a medical marijuana dispensary. I was doing that. And then the plan was to start the dispensary and then start a fashion line. Fashion and design was always my go-to. That's what my real passion is.
Right.
So the idea was to start the dispensary and then use the money I make off that to fund a company. Eventually, by 2012, I was in the position and I started Friendy, and then
OGs know what Friendy is.
Yeah, Friendy was my first brand. It was actually something I printed the first Friendy T-shirt in 2004. And then just kept the idea going. And then finally, when I was at the point where I could turn it into a full brand, I'd actually been introduced to a guy named Eric. He had a brand. Him and his girlfriend had a brand called Unif at the time. And he had been seeing some of my Death Burka posts, and he had asked me, what's up with Death Burka? Da, da, da. And he had wanted to turn that into a brand, but that was just my artist name, it was my internet personality. And didn't really want to turn that into a brand. We kind of fucked around played with the idea for a minute, but I was like, look, this is what I've really been doing, this friend of me. It took him a a little bit to gravitate towards the idea, but finally he was like, okay, I'm down. And essentially he kind of like shadowed me and mentored me to do the brand,
Right.
and kind of showed me the whole game. So I had like this guy who had a really successful clothing company. At the time it was like the shit. Like Unif was fucking the hottest shit you could fucking get. Yeah. And I was in a very privileged situation being able to operate out of their office, and then have both him and his girlfriend kind of like mentor me in the game and show me what's up with fashion. So I turned into a skate brand. Then as I was forming the skate team, we would do this thing every Tuesday called Trick Tuesdays. And it started out with like a bunch of kids from Odd Future, like some kids from Odd Future, not like the rappers, but the skater kids that I had become close to. And we would go to the skate parks and skate. And then we would just start hitting different skate parks all through Southern California every Tuesday. And then we started getting further out into the IE. And then one day we ended up at Ferg, and then that's when we met Jock and Steve Gamboa at the time. Jonathan I wasn't there that day, but I remember it was Jock and Steve.
Yeah.
And Samaria Brevard.
Oh yeah.
And I was pulling, every time we would go to the skate park, we would be filming, and then kids would be like, yo, what's up? Everybody's like, everyone's rocking Friendy, seeing these 33s and shit like that. Like, what's up with this team? Da, 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 da. Like, yo, throw down a trick, I'll give you a shirt. Boom, boom, boom. So naturally, Steve and Jock are fucking throwing down, and we're like, yo, fucking, like, let's throw on a shirt. Let's fucking get some clips. And then Samaria pulls up, and I'm like, pfft. Throwing a shirt, she's fucking like kick flipping this fucking double set at Ferg, and at the time, like no girls were doing shit like that. Yeah, like she was throwing down. So I was like, all you kids, if you want to fucking come skate with us, like you're on the squad, like automatic, like. And then that blossomed into a bigger skate team. I think Jacob was there too.
Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob.
Damn.
But then, we got a bunch of kids out of Rialto. The Rialto kids were fucking throwing the fuck down, and they're hella motivated. So that's how I ended up in the IU, is just purely through skating and like a serendipitous kind of thing. Well, I don't know, the universe just led me there, but it was
great. It was a crazy era. I remember when I was young, dude. I think I was about like 16 years old, and I'm almost 30 now. So like. Shit. When we were kids, like everybody was wearing Friendy, like, and I remember just telling Steve, because Steve would always come over to my house. I'm like, dude, why the fuck you wearing Friendy? You can't get me. And he's like, oh, let me ask, Nick. And I'm like, dude, like, I want to be on the team. And I was doing fucking backside 360s down stair sets. I was like 4 foot tall, and I was like, damn. Never came to fruition. You never really fucked with me like that when we were kids. But
well, you know what? It was you really had to just like come. I was such a nice person that like man, if you wanted to show, if you showed up, you're pretty much on the squad. If you showed up and you came to skate, like I put you on and I gave you a chance. And like maybe I didn't put you on the team immediately, but if you kept pulling up with the crew, eventually like you might get that spot.
I could probably
like
still search up.
Jesse took a little minute, like Jesse.
Carry on.
Carry on. Yeah. Anyways, I think I like I took a little minute to like put him on the team, and then I finally put him on. Jonathan came a little bit later, but all the kids, like, the main thing was like, are you here to skate? Because we had a couple kids that were like getting into everyone was from underprivileged situations. A lot of the early team was like inner city kids from Hawthorne, South Central area. And I love these kids, but like they were like, some of them were gangbanging a little too hard.
Kids, yeah.
They just, they're caught up in the lifestyle. They were doing what they had to do to fucking get by. And they would show up and they would be fucking doing drugs and shit like that. And like I was cool with smoke
gear.
Yeah. They were in the Friendy gear. That wasn't really the problem. It was more like, if you're gonna do drugs and not skate, like That's not really what I'm trying to promote. Like I'm totally pro drug, and I like I don't care if you do drugs.
But you have to be productive with it.
You got to be productive, and I also didn't want to set the wrong example.
Yeah.
You know, these kids were younger than me, and I didn't want to be like creating an environment where they thought like, oh yeah, you just come like hang out with the Friendy crew and you just do a drugs
Because
all day.
it did seem like Frenemy was cult like ish at the time.
Yeah, what it was like a little cold because unless you knew me, unless you fuck with me, like you weren't down. But I was, like I said, I'm a super open, inclusive person. So like as long as it was just for the love of the skateboarding, I didn't really care about your skill level. Like if you just wanted to show up and pull up with us, like I would hand you gear, and I would take you out to lunch, and you would skate with us all day. I would pay for these kids to come, like take the train all the way from the IE, all the way from Rialto, and like I pay for them to get out here on a Sunday so we could fucking go mob the whole city and catch clips. And I had my you know, he wasn't a partner, but he should have eventually would have become a partner. God rest his soul, Ben Hamilton. He was my second filmer and helped us produce our first skate film. But yeah, like together we had 2 cars, and so we would just load all the kids up and fucking just go get it, you know. But it was you know, it was funny because we pull up to the spots, we pull up to like, you know, Jaquan, or we pull up to the fucking Santa Monica courthouse, and everybody would be wearing the fucking Frenemy gear, and the pros would just like, and then my kids would show up, and they were fucking throwing the fuck down, you know.
Yeah.
So everybody noticed us, but they didn't really like. The skateboard community is kind of funny because we're all too cool, you know. We're all like way too cool for each other, like, you know. And we don't want to fucking like, we don't want to like, we don't want to like act like we're jocking or we're like, I don't know. Anyways,
it was like on par with like, because I think at the time it was like early 2010s.
Yeah, it was like 2012.
2012,
and then like 2012 to 2016 is like really the years where we set it off.
Yeah, if I had to make like the comparison of how big Frenemy was, it was starting to get to. Do you remember Quiet Life?
No.
It was like Quiet Life, or like even the Hundreds, like when Hundreds, like in their early stages of like streetwear.
Yeah.
When they started to blow up, like that's how everybody started to see it, and you're like. At a point, it got to where it was like, okay, like, what is that shirt, 333? Like, what are you representing? It was like, oh, if you know you...
33.
Yeah, if 33, if you know, you know. And, like, a lot of people didn't know. So that's when it started to become cult-like-ish, where it was like, if you know, you know. And if you don't, we're not going to explain to you. Like, you're obviously not ready.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was definitely, like, as a brand, we had, you know, I was trying to definitely I was definitely trying to push the envelope.
You did.
Especially with the imagery, you know, and the concept itself was like trying to combine all the spiritual kind of beliefs into one. And so, you know, we had all these symbols and fucking people would trip out on it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it was just supposed to like represent like we're all inclusive. Yeah. You know, like there's no separation between these ideas. There's actually more parallels than there is differences, but we allow it to become the thing that separates us in this weird way when it should be the thing that unites us all. But anyways, the brand and the team represented that. It was like a various mix of personalities, cultures, backgrounds. For the most part, like most of the kids were underprivileged. And I think that's where like you find a lot of the hunger too. And I wanted to like that was definitely a huge motivation of mine, is like to try and give back to the underprivileged kids like as much as I could. I come from a very affluent upbringing neighborhood, raised around a lot of rich motherfuckers. And so, but I never really like I didn't really identify with them as much. I always identify with like more hood culture for some reason. My father's from East LA, but my mother's from Santa Barbara. So there was this like little dichotomy in my life between like my father's like from the hood, from the streets, and my mother's kind of like from a waspy family. So I always could mingle between both. And being raised where I was, so I have this, I'm like kind of like the bridge between the two. Most kids, like where I'm coming from, I'm from Santa Barbara, but I grew up in a place called Montecito, which is like one of the per capita wealthiest places in the entire country. It's where Oprah lives and shit like that. And but you're not like there's not too many kids. I might be one of the only ones that could actually like is from Montecito, could go step into South Central, and go hang out with the homies down there. You know, I get invited to shit. One of the kids I train with is fucking from Grape Street. You know, he invites me down to like shit that they're doing. One of like the biggest funerals they ever had. So I'm in this cool position where I can kind of like be in both,
in like several different cultures, because
and it doesn't like, you know, I'm not wed to one or attached to one, and I'm not awkward either, you know. It's not like I have to like fake it to be either way, you know. Inherently, because of my parents' backgrounds, I'm kind of essentially part of both, so just in my DNA. But
so where did you somehow find the time to become like one of the more credentialed jiu-jitsu black belts in one of the best lineages?
Well, the funny thing is jiu-jitsu is like I was led to jiu-jitsu through skateboarding, because I grew up skateboarding. When I was 7, I got my first skateboard. By the time I was like 12, I was working in a skate shop, and my whole life was like skateboarding. I like wanted to be a pro, but when I was 16, I broke my ankle. That kind of fucked me up, like mentally. I wasn't really ready for like the realities of like really skateboard. I didn't even break it doing anything crazy too. It was the dumbest shit, which tends to happen. So then I kind of took a break, and then I like came back to skateboarding a couple years later, and I fell in love with it again. And then I fucking rolled my other ankle like just as bad. Yeah. I thought I broke it, but I didn't. And this time I was actually doing some shit. And then I was out for another 3 months, and I just like had this realization. I'm like, fuck, dude, I can't like be out for like 3 months off a fucking injury. Like, Like, I got to figure some shit out, like where I don't get so fucked up. And so, at the time, I had like 2 friends from college. I was in college at that time. I had 2 friends that had been like talking to me about jiu-jitsu they trained. And once I healed from the injury, it like kind of motivated me to actually, the funny thing is like one of them like told me the story about Hawks and Gracie, who is I'm a black belt under Crone Gracie. So this is Crone's late older brother. He passed away in I believe it was 2001. He was actually tragically murdered. But the story that my homie told was kind of like a legend of like Hawks and Gracie, and like he was this like basically like this little gangbanger jiu-jitsu fucking crazy ass motherfucker. Like I grew up in I think Torrance, but basically even the gangbangers didn't fuck with the Gracie kids. Like they were the scariest kids. And so like when he showed me, and then he showed me this image of him, and it's like it's a famous image of Hawks, and it's the back of his head, and he's like has this Gracie tattoo across the back of his head, and then 21st Century Warrior underneath. And when I saw that image and I heard, I was like, bro, that's I want that. I want to be that. Like whatever that is. So from the injury, it led me to start training at Paragon in Santa Barbara, and immediately I fell in love with it. And I was lucky. I was like 20 years old when that happened. So I just got into it early, and it actually, you know, I was incorrect in the thinking that this was gonna be a more injury-free hobby. It's actually like what I come to realize is like no matter what the fuck you're doing, if it's the athletic pursuit, like you're gonna get fucked up.
I think I hurt my hip more in jiu-jitsu than I had like every single session, more than I have gotten hurt in skateboarding.
Yeah,
like,
it's gnarly,
and that's just the hip.
Yeah, just the hip,
the shoulders, like the fingers on top of it, like it's Jiu-jitsu it's a different beast, but it's different. It's more of an intense love that you have for it.
Yeah, it's a crazy one. Both these things, skateboarding and jiu-jitsu, because obviously then I take another break from skateboarding. I find jiu-jitsu. I'm like skateboarding in and out, and then eventually then I go back to Friendy and I start skating again. And then probably three years into Friendy, let's see, like 2012, I get my first knee surgery from jiu-jitsu. At this point, I've been training for 6 years. No, let's see, 8 years, and then a year later, I'm skating at Stoner Park, and I fucking just kind of like slip on trying to do this backside 50-50, like warming up too. I was fucked up. I think I was partying the night before or something, and I fell on the knee again. And I had to get another knee surgery. So either way, you're fucked. Either way, you're fucked, and it's just like both of them become kind of like these toxic relationships where like you're continuously abusing your body,
abusing the shit out of it.
But you can't
you
like,
can't stop.
But it's like a girl that you just love having sex with, but you guys just are the worst things in the world for each other.
I know a lot about that.
Yeah me too. I know a lot about that too. So
but you want to know the funnier part about it is like I've done like a lot of I wrestled in high school and college, right?
Yeah.
So like I didn't start jiu-jitsu until like the pandemic in a way.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So when I started doing jiu-jitsu, it was different because I was this like stocky little wrestler kid. I would just shoot a double leg and I thought I was most badass in the world, right? But when I went to jiu-jitsu, I was like a fucking fish out of water, dude. Like I was wearing the gi. And at the time I was like, dude, I can't stand a gi. Like I was like, dude, I want to do no gi. Where are the fucking no gi classes? And like I trained originally under Gabby Garcia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. That's crazy.
At Alliance.
That's crazy.
And I would train with her, with Myra Mazza, like the whole Alliance crew. Like
that's dope.
Some real like badass dudes. So I was like, okay, like this is great. But I didn't feel like that badass that I was because when I was in the gi, like I was getting swept. I was getting fucking lapel choked from the bottom. Like there was a bunch of shit that I did not know. And I was like, damn, like, do I want to keep doing it?
Yeah.
But then you go back because you're like mad. You're mad. You're like, okay, I'm going to get better. And then they're like, oh, hey, like, did you learn from your mistakes? Like they were super nice about it. And that's the jiu-jitsu community where they're like, they don't really hold things against you if you make a mistake. Like jiu-jitsu, it's all about like, how can we fix you?
Yes.
So the thing about skateboarding though with me is like, whenever I skated, every time I got injured or I fucked up, it was out of my control. At least it felt like. So when I would be out for like, I broke both my ankles at the same time.
Both at the same time?
Rialto skate park. So I was out for a year. That was probably going to be the best year of my like high school career for wrestling.
Skateboarding just like destroys your life.
Destroyed my life, right? But with jiu-jitsu, they're like, hey, brush your shoulders, like brush off your shoulders, dude. Like if you fucked up, you got beat up, don't get mad about it. Because tomorrow, like you made a mistake, like jiu-jitsu is all about correcting your mistakes.
Yeah.
You know?
And the difference, which at the time, like, it's crazy. When I started Friendy, I was telling these kids, I'm like, bro, it's going to be an Olympic sport, and really like my philosophy was like, okay, I'm going to approach skateboarding like jiu-jitsu because there's no coaches at the time. They're like coaching skateboarding was not really a thing. And after having trained jiu-jitsu, I'm like, man, there's a technical component to everything. And what skateboarding lacks is like basically having like a mentor who can show you like the technique to the skateboarding. And then that will help you develop a lot quicker. And first of all, not reinforce bad habits in your skateboarding technique, but also allow you to progress and probably avoid more injuries, because that's the thing that happens with jiu-jitsu. Like you get fucked up, but the more you approach things technically, the less fucked up, or the more you can prevent getting like seriously fucked up. So that was the whole thing with Friendy. I was like, man, the dream was to bring that kind of coaching component to skateboarding. And at first it was just like being a mentor and giving these kids a platform to progress, but also I was very adamant in like communicating to them, like, don't fucking stop, don't fucking stop skating. No matter what happens, don't stop skating. Because that's what I started realizing with jiu-jitsu is man, if I wouldn't have stopped skating, I'd be a fucking killer, bro.
killer.
Like I fucking just let these injuries like fucking become obstacles in my mind, which I never let happen in jiu-jitsu. Like no matter how badly hurt, I would still show up to train. Because it's a little bit different. Like, even if you fuck up your ankle, even if you broke your ankle in jiu-jitsu, you could actually still train jiu-jitsu. Whereas, like, with skateboarding, you can't really do that. You know, you could definitely, with a sprained ankle, you could still get some. And I would always push that as a kid. Like, no matter how sprained my ankle was, I'd still be trying to do my kickflips and shit like that. But the main thing was that don't stop skateboarding. And eventually, I did have to stop doing Friendy for financial reasons. I was still running the dispensary. I ended up getting like shut down on some political shit here in Los Angeles with some fuck shit. Couldn't continue to fund the brand, and so I couldn't like keep up with the skate team, which was really expensive to do. But the kids that kept skating are now fucking, you know, they're like with Baker, with DGK, or fucking riding with all the pros. They're throwing the fuck down, and they're
primitive
like,
type shit, like dude, like crazy shit.
Like Steve Gamboa is with the Baker crew, Deathwish or Baker?
Deathwish.
I think Deathwish.
And then
so
Ours Is Yours with Ryan Herman. He started that new shoe company.
No, I don't know Ryan Herman.
No,
but,
Brian Herman.
Oh, Brian Herman.
Brian Herman left America to start his own shoe because Steve's with them.
And Steve's with them, yeah. And so Steve kept skating, so he's with Deathwish and whatever that skate shoe. I didn't know that brand.
It's a badass shoe. I have a pair of their shoes, dude.
And then Ryan Carell, who was kind of like a late, like he was kind of like came into the brand super late, but it was like right before I had to shut it down, which is kind of a shame because he had so much. He was like so talented and such a cool.
And he's
kid.
still very young.
And now he's like riding with DGK, and probably has a few other sponsorships.
Active, Thunder, Spitfire.
He's fucking sick as fuck. Like he's blowing the fuck up on the gram. Like he's got so much pop, bro. I have so much respect for that kid. And then Samaria Brevard.
She was in the Olympics.
Yeah, she's in the Olympics.
She's in the fucking
Olympics. I'm like, that's like these are all like my like little seeds, you know? Like,
because I'm hanging out with them when I'm young, right? And I'm 16, 17, 18 years old. And like I could still think back from the days when we're kids. Like we're kids, bro. Like that's what we are.
Yeah.
And now I'm like when the Olympics are on, my mom's like, look, you should have kept skateboarding. Or you should have kept skateboarding. You could have been on the Olympics. And I turn it on, I'm like, is that fucking Samaria?
Is that Samaria? Yeah, bro. When I see Samaria I already knew she was a legend. You know, like all these kids, like from the day they were put in front of me, I knew they were special kids. And so that's why I wanted to give my energy to them, you know, as much as they would give. If they were going to put the energy into themselves, I wanted to be there to continue to fuel that dream as much as I could. And yeah, Samaria I knew from the very beginning was like she fucked. This girl's fucking kick flipping a double set like at Fur. Like most of the boys ain't doing that shit.
And it's nothing like. But if you're from skateboarding, you know that like there's no. When we were younger, there was no culture built around women. Like
no,
at
like
all.
Yeah.
So like,
girls had a funny style, you know.
If a girl like maybe it was something physiological, like just biologically, like, but I don't know. When you saw women like skateboarding, it was they didn't have the same capabilities. And then when you saw Samaria, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. You're like, okay, this is the new level. And it's the same thing in MMA too. So I think it's just like there's just not as many women doing it, so they don't have as many people to look up to or references. You know, they have a bunch of guys, and you know, I think guys when they're approaching sports are always going to approach it a little bit. You know, testosterone is just different. You know, like, so it's like there's just like an explosiveness that men have that unfortunately, you know, women don't have. But women, because of that, they become more technical. So you know, like especially women MMA fighters, like they are so technical with their game. It can be more impressive sometimes. And so when it comes to skateboarding, now you're seeing, who's the little kid? Fucking, she's like 13, 14, 15 now. I don't know.
It's not Kayon Suke or?
No, it's a Brazilian girl. The Brazilian girl.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Anyways, fucking dude, she fucking. I don't remember if it was a front blunt.
Front blunt,
yeah,
big flip out. It was like front blunt, big flip out, or
no, down the Hollywood 16.
it was the front blunt shove it.
Was that what it, bro?
Yeah,
like,
down the Hollywood 16.
Yeah, no, I mean she's taking out guys. You know, like she's better than the boys, like most boys. So
I wouldn't even fathom the idea of alling that when I was a kid. So like, when I look at videos now, like I still watch skateboarding every single day, and I'm looking at like all these, 13, 16-year-old kids. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are they putting testosterone in like Wheaties? Like,
no, what I think it is there's the coaching component now. So
Yeah.
so this was like what I was originally envisioning with Frenemy, and now it's actually come to fruition. So you have like since it's an Olympic sport, it's being approached that way.
Yeah.
The other thing that didn't really exist was like strength and conditioning or just some kind of alternative program outside of the skateboarding that helped you, build your pop or build your leg muscles or build your balance, whatever it is. And that always was a part of Olympic sports, but that's one thing that I saw in MMA and Jiu Jitsu is like, oh, they're doing some kind of alternative training program to contribute to their overall ability.
Right.
And so I think a lot of this is being brought into skateboarding now. And then also like recovery techniques, which are like, doing the recovery, having a kind of a recovery protocol in sports is super important, especially for something like skateboarding, because you're putting so much fucking damage on your body. And like, if you're not doing anything to unlock all that damage or to try and mitigate it, at least balance it out a little bit, it just fucks you up and fucks your career up, more. So you're seeing all these elements being brought into skateboarding, and then there's probably some dudes on steroids. I wouldn't be surprised.
In
skateboarding
or
because
we can talk all night about jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah,
like,
no, jiu-jitsu, that's not even obvious. But like, I think it's probably a less obvious thing. Like
in skateboarding.
Yeah, I think that there's probably dudes like that are on some kind of performance enhancing drugs,
especially like the Olympics at the Olympic level. Like the touring that they're doing and the skateboarding that they're doing, like, is so taxing on the body.
So taxing.
There has to be like some,
and it's not even necessarily like to increase their performance overall, but PEDs are the biggest benefit is the healing advantage, So that's like why a lot of people use it in MMA and jiu-jitsu is just like, if you're going to train 6-7 days a week, 2 days and sparring and all, like, there's just no way for your body to recover in time and get that much training done. So you got to do something to supplement that. And that's where PEDs come into play. So in skateboarding, like, bro, you fucking need to heal an injury in half the time. Then you're going to do what you got to do.
And ice is not cutting it.
Yeah, ice is just not going to cut it. Like, it's just an unfortunate circumstance. At the professional level, everybody uses PEDs. And
can I say something controversial?
Of course. I love controversy.
I'm not against it.
I'm not against it either. Like, I'm all here
really
for
not
it.
against it.
For me, like, I use PEDs, but I don't use steroids.
Yeah.
For me, cannabis is a performance
enhancing drug.
And psychedelics are a performance enhancing drug for me, And so, like, I like to microdose when I train, and I always smoke weed. Before every session that I train in, I smoke weed.
And sparkling water too.
Sparkling water, that's my
performance.
I don't drink I don't drink like alcohol. Really,
that's the only thing I do, dude. I used to party a lot, like crazy, do everything in the book, like. But one day I was just like, I'm fucking tired of this shit, and I just quit cold turkey. But the one thing, like, I don't even drink like that anymore. But like celebratory things, like I will absolutely drink because. I feel like everybody has to have some vice.
Oh no, you do. Everybody needs to self-medicate in some way.
Alcohol being mine, because I'm not an alcoholic.
No. Everybody self-medicates, and if you're not being prescribed by, like, that's the thing. Like this concept of a drug, like, oh, you shouldn't be doing drugs, but like, your mom's on drugs, your dad's on
Yeah,
drugs.
everyone
It
is.
might be OTC, over the counter shit. It might be prescription meds for, you know, their condition, or maybe a SRI, or even Adderall.
Yeah,
well, you know,
your everyday
which is a
person is doing
performance enhancing
Adderall.
drug. You know, a lot of high performing professionals are using Adderall or things like New Visual or something like that. So there's this misconception in our culture, I believe, that using drugs is somehow non-beneficial, but the most high performing people in the world are all using drugs.
And it also makes
And
it more
sometimes that
entertaining.
drug is a street drug. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes that drug is just not a legalized drug yet. For me, cannabis has always been a huge part of my self-medication, but also part of enhancing my performance, my creativity. And then psychedelics as well have been an enormous part of both enhancing my performance and my creativity, whether it be physical. Like, I love taking acid and going snowboarding. Like,
I quit those too. You want to know why?
Tell me why.
Because the last time I ever did mushrooms, I had to stop because that was the very first time that the trees ever spoke to me.
Oh, see, that's why I do them, bro. I'm trying to have the trees.
Like I swear, it was the last time I ever did them, and the reason being was because every time I would do mushrooms, it was the greatest experience. Even the bad trips where you'd freak out, you'd have anxiety. I taught myself to know that they're lessons, like they're putting me through, you know, hard lessons that I need to learn.
Yes.
But this one specific occasion, like the trees talk to me, like I can literally hear voices that like I can still hear to this day. They were the most soothing, and all what they told me was, "You're so tense. Like, relax. We are trees. The only purpose that we serve is to give off oxygen, and sometimes entertainment to kids that want to climb us.
Tight.
So what the fuck makes you think that you're so important?"
Oh, shit.
And I was like, I just couldn't stop thinking. To this day, like I'm like, I can't stop thinking about that, because I'm like, in my everyday life before that, I would always overthink things and overstress things, and like I have to be this by that age or whatever. But lately, especially recently, I've tapped into this mentality where I'm here to serve a purpose, like, but I'm not here to conquer the world.
Totally. Well, you know, the world that you're conquering is your world, you know? Like,
Yeah.
we all have our own world. We're all existing in our own universe, because there's no, at a spiritual level, philosophical level, and then at a purely biological level, all our experience is being processed through the mind. Being processed, filtered through the brain. So really, there's nothing. We're never getting a pure download of like raw reality. It's all being filtered through our perceptions and through our brain. And this is, it's not even like a debatable thing. This is like pure science. So there really, like, that's the, like, we all exist in this custom, like universe of our own that our mind is basically generating for us, based on like several influencing factors, environmental factors, from, you know, our friends and, you know, our social conditionings and social pressures and our job and the food we eat and the shit that we consume, you know, the information we consume. All these things are influencing that universe. But yeah, I mean, you basically only have your world to conquer, but not the world.
Not
you know,
the
you
world,
know.
yeah.
I think that's where people like,
That's the hardest part, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
No,
it's
no,
like
no, please.
that's the hardest part, that like 90% of people cannot like separate the two, where it's they're trying to conquer the world, but in reality they don't know that they're just trying to conquer their own world.
yes,
That's hard. Like, and it was hard for me because I associated the world with everyone else instead of associating the world with just myself. Like, I never took a hard look in the mirror and I was like, why are you competing with everybody else? Like, no matter how mad you get at X, Y, and Z, this person, that person, you're still in a place where you don't want to be. You know, so why are you competing with everybody else rather than yourself?
I think that's just like a social, like, again, that's like a social conditioning. It's like a social, like, that's being an American, is like we've been taught our whole lives that we are competing with everybody else, you know, and we're not really taught about the fact that we're only competing with ourselves. This is something that you have to come to discover as you get older, or if you find something like jiu-jitsu, like you are, you know, as you get deeper on the path, like you start to realize like, oh, I'm the only obstacle in my progress. It's not necessarily my teammates or my opponents. It's me and not catching what my professor is putting down, you know, or not making the adjustments I need to in this technique, and I keep getting caught or stuck in the same repetitive shit, you know. And it all of life is really undoing habits that are like subconscious, below our level of awareness, and then replacing them with new ones that are more aligned with who we are at the moment. And then sometimes you got to undo those again in the future and then replace them with something that's more aligned with who you are, with your future self, you know? And so it's this continual process. And if people focused on that more, there'd be a lot less conflict. Yeah. Because there's not really enough time in the day to focus on competing with other people, but then also dealing with your own issues and dealing with like making the necessary changes, recalibrations in your own life. When you take that on as like an actual, like you're dedicated to that process, like almost like it's your profession to work out your shit and actually become a better version of yourself, then you really don't have time to be competing and dealing with other people's bullshit and like comparing and doing all these things. Cause you're like, man, there's so much shit that I got to undo within myself. Yeah. And like, I've got to compete with like the old versions of myself and the new versions that I'm looking to be. So, but, you know, this is why psychedelics are a super important, I think, a super important kind of element, or they're very important for society, especially today, where we're in like such a conflictual point in our world. It allows these things to be perceived on your own without someone like telling you like, oh, this is what you should be doing. Like you should be focusing on yourself. Like you actually like just realize like, oh shit, these are the things that I should be focusing on. And it kind of reveals it to you in this way that I don't think there's not a lot of other things that can do that, you know, and especially in like an immediate, like, maybe take a spiritual path, maybe start training jiu-jitsu, you have some like pursuit, yoga, whatever it is. And eventually you'll get there. But like psychedelics will do it like, oh, you
a number on
take this, boom, and then you're there. You know, it's like telling you what to do.
One trip. Yeah, it'll teach you 27 or 26, 25 years of like, you know, hard lessons that you couldn't really tap into on your own, you know?
Exactly.
And that's why one day I was just like, I'm good. Like it was that one time where I spoke to the trees and the trees spoke to me and they're like, relax, buddy. You got this. Like,
and that's like actually like what the science of psychedelics is like. If you anyone is familiar with MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, and they're actually on the forefront of psychedelic legalization, FDA approval for MDMA, therapeutic use of MDMA. They're like in their third phase trial for approval, which is like the final stage. Basically, it's actually a super profound moment in psychedelic history. So what they discover is like it really only takes like one time sometimes, one experience with these substances that people come to the realization like, oh, I don't need to trip so hard, or oh, I can let go of this thing, or oh, this is the change that I need to make. And I think that's also one thing that's like makes it scary for, you know, current drug companies too, that depend on
it's that easy.
Yeah. It like depend on like a renewed prescription for life. and a chronic disease that never ends so that they can continue to make their money. It's like, oh wait, there might be this other thing that like solves it in one go, like
After
one session.
after one mushroom trip, dude, depression didn't exist to me for the next 3-4 months.
See, that's beautiful.
So like, but could you imagine what it does for chronic depression? Like, you know, people who suffer from depression. And that's the thing. We're fed all this information that these are like bad drugs, you know. But I think if everybody just took one, you know, like just one mushroom trip, just had one legitimate one, they would realize like, I'm kind of missing out on a lot of like beneficial life rather than focusing on like the more foggy gray areas of life.
Yeah. I think you just like your priorities become more clear, and what you want becomes more clear, and what what actually matters in life becomes more clear, you know. And again, it all comes down to undoing all these like socially prescribed ideas about what matters. And you know, these are things that are ingrained with and into us as children from our parents, our peers, our teachers, mentors, whatever. And then it becomes so habitual, it becomes so like hardwired in our neural pathways that as we get older, we fail to question it, you know. And then until we like find ourselves deep into something, a profession, a relationship, that no longer like feels good to us, it doesn't feel like it's serving us. And then all of a sudden, like we start doing like, we have some experience, generally it's a crisis in our life that forces us to like re-audit all of these ideas that we have about the world, ourselves, and what matters. And then we realize like, oh shit, like that whole thing my parents were like pushing me to do, like I don't even want to do that shit. Like that don't fucking make, I want to go skate. Like I want to go fucking train jiu-jitsu, or like I ain't trying to be married and have a kid at like 25 or
it could be the opposite. Like when I was a kid, I was a badass child, right? And I talk to my mom about this all the time, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, because when I was a child, like all I wanted to do was like be this like crazy rebel or whatever. Like I wanted to fight my mom on everything. And now that I'm her age, like, and I've done psychedelics, like I look at it from a different perspective, to where like the stress that I feel in my everyday life, it's nowhere close in comparison to what we would put her through, or what she would go through on a daily basis, or what she continues to go through to this day. So when I look at it from this perspective, and I look at like people around me, I'm like, why are you giving your parents a hard time? Like, or why are you giving your teachers? I have a little sister, like she did something similar to me when I was a kid, and I was like, you're going to regret this for the years to come in your life. Like, so it's best that you learn this lesson now from somebody who's went through it, rather than to think you're funny at like a very young age. Like psychedelics helped me with that. It's crazy. Like I know when people hear me talk about psychedelics and I tell them how like you need to try shrooms, like it's not I'm suggesting it to you, like you need to try it, because if you're somebody that suffers with just like the abnormalities, like the regular life, like the depression from like, let's say the 9-to-5 life or whatever, you legitimately need to try shrooms to broaden your mind, like to maybe you are creative and you just haven't been able to tap into that.
Or you're just like, whatever you're dedicating your 9-to-5 to should just be more fulfilling, more aligned with like something that like is actually true to your heart, you know, because we all got to do a 9-to-5. Like there's no like, or the metaphorical 9-to-5, even if it's like, you know, I do like 3 p.m. to fucking 3 a.m.
I do a 9-to-5. I do a 6 to 2:30. And then I also do a 9 to 5:30. Okay. So I do 2 jobs, right? And I still find time to kind of like do jiu-jitsu or like gym. But like, if you were speaking to me years ago, and I make great money, right? Yeah. But if you were to speak to me years ago, I would say, I don't want this fucking life, you know? But like, here I am now doing 2 full-times. I'm focusing on trying to like do a law career with school. Great. And then jiu-jitsu. These are all things that I love. And then on top of it, I was able to fit in this podcast, which like it fulfills me. I like speaking to guys like you. I like speaking to people who are extraordinary, who have like different backgrounds that don't have platforms. And I think definitely 100% shrooms kind of helped me like unlock and tap into that, where before I wouldn't be able to put this into a picture, like into like an actual physical object. And now I'm just like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think psychedelics, as crazy as it sounds, like it helped with a lot of that.
No, I mean, you know, you're preaching to the choir on that one. Like, I know it helps. Obviously, it's not for everybody, but like, you know, there's definitely people that have, you know, a potential hereditary mental health condition that can be dormant, and then things like psychedelics or cannabis can activate it. So, you know, there is some risks that, so it's like not for every single person, but for the majority of people it would be helpful for sure. And there's also different psychedelics. They're not all the same. So something like MDMA, you know, might be more complementary for one person than, you know, well, I mean, yeah,
you're right. You are right.
You know, according to the studies,
you're right.
I'm not like a huge MDMA guy. Like
those open me up for sure.
I've done tons of MDMA, but at the same time, like it's not my preference, personally. But like for some people, like it's not as heady, you know, as mushrooms or LSD, but it's just as heart opening. So there's an ability for them to let their defenses down and be a little bit more vulnerable or honest about their vulnerabilities, traumas in the past, and look at them without aversion or negativity, and kind of look at them more objectively, and then learn from those experiences or how they're imprinting on you and your life. So and so that, you know, there's a multitude of substances out there, and those aren't even all of them. MDMA, LSD, fucking psilocybin, you know, there's Alexander Shulgin's
peyote,
synthesized like a shit of
peyote,
hundreds of different psychedelic substances, or
DMT.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of crazy shit out there. So you know, we don't know like how these things can benefit society and culture, especially used in like the proper context too, where it's not like, oh, it's not just partying, you know, we're not just trying to get fucked up. It's fun for that too. Like I love that, but like ultimately you've got to be using these tools to enhance yourself in some way. That's the true benefit, because there is limitations. There is like
there's a barrier.
Yeah, there's a barrier.
There's like there's a diminishing returns. There's a specific time where it's no longer fun and it's more detrimental.
Yeah, it just starts not. You know, you're not getting as much as you could out of it. You know.
But one thing that I really, before we, because I know we're kind of running out of time here, but one thing that I really wanted to ask you, you are big in the crypto space, at least to me. I've followed some of your trades. I've followed some of the things, especially during your pandemic era, and I made some good money.
Tight.
What is some advice that you can give to someone like me who works 2 regular jobs but has supplemental income that he wants to put into crypto?
I mean, the main thing with crypto is you got to learn how to read charts. Like if you don't learn like basic technical analysis, essentially what you're doing is just like listening to a bunch of shills tell you what they think is a good idea or a good investment, and they have first of all, a different read on the game. Second of all, probably ulterior motives. And third of all, it's all being skewed through their perception and like what's relevant for their financial situation, right? So if I tell you to take a certain trade or investment, it may not align with you like with your professional situation or your financial situation. You know, you may be less risk averse. You may not be able to stomach 70 to 90% drawdowns. You might not be able to keep money tied up for a 4-year plus period where you can actually see where you can actually see a perpetual gain in your initial investment.
Right.
So that's it's hard for me to tell you what to actually like buy as far as crypto. Now Bitcoin will always be like the safest bet, but it's not gonna be the largest returns you can make because it's the most well-known digital asset. It doesn't have some of the parabolic gains that some of these other cryptos can reach. At the same time, these other cryptos are a lot riskier, so there's a bigger chance to lose money in them, or to time your your entry and your exit. So that's where like learning how to read charts is super essential, and just having like, you don't even need to like, if you're not a day trader, you don't even need to get like super technical with it. Just like some basic understanding of like what a trend is. Are we in an uptrend or are we in a downtrend? My little homie, who actually is the reason I started trading, he says like the charts only go one way, up or down, and so like that's what you've got to learn, like to be able to read, like, is it going up or is it going down, and then you act accordingly, right? You don't want to like if you can't stomach big drawdowns and then the market is starting to go down, like you have to exit your positions. And the biggest problem with trading and investment in crypto in general is the psychological aspect, where you just there's this FOMO component. Like when it starts going up, you want to buy in, and then you think it's going to go up forever. But then when it's coming down, you always think it's going to reverse or it could turn around at some point. And so you don't exit the position because you don't want to take either a loss or make less profit, So that's why reading the charts is super important. And then having a plan. Like the main component to trading is having a plan before you actually make the trade or have the, take or invest. If you don't have a plan before you do it, then you're going to get stuck in a situation where you don't know when to exit. And if it does become, if you are in like this uptrend, this like parabolic uptrend where like you just seen the number go up and your account fucking just fucking swelling and you're like, God damn, you never want to pull out. And psychologically, like it's the nature of the mind. No matter how seasoned of a trader you are, how much you've seen this game before, the mind will tell you, keep it going. It's going to keep going up forever. You can keep going up forever. So if you have a plan, you'll be like, no, this is where I was going to exit, or this is where I was at least going to take some profit, and I'll let it ride, and then set a stop loss and profit so that like if it comes back down, I don't like nuke my whole account. But a lot of these things require like learning how to read a chart, a basic understanding of a chart. And then there's some deeper things to crypto. It's like, it has to do with like a 4-year cycle. So there's like these uptrends and downtrends, and they generally last like 2 years up and 2 years down. And not that the trend can, it can definitely, like the trend could break at some point, but historically this has been the trend. There's these 4-year cycles. So learning to invest, prior to the parabolic uptrend where you get these explosive moves, and then exiting before it like crashes again. But the tendency for at least Bitcoin and like the larger digital assets like Ethereum and stuff is that even when it crashes, it might like come down 70-90%. Once it hits the next cycle, it'll never go below like that original investment point at which you made. So, and that's where we're kind of like at right now with crypto.
Sick.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, because I need to get back into to crypto trading because I see there's too many people making too much money right now.
Yeah.
And I know it's gonna go higher and higher, so I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna invest. But yeah, dude, like it was insanely good to have you on. This is the very first episode, and I don't think we could have really had a better guest on, unless like you're Kanye West.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're trying to push that, you know.
But
we never talked about Death Side too, you know. Death Side is like the kind of like the new extension of Frenemy. Essentially, I had to stop doing Frenemy. But
Death Side.
Yeah, Death Side. That's my new brand. I just dropped it at towards the end of the year, very beginning of the year. And again, what I realized with Frenemy that I didn't realize was, you know, that I always told my skateboarders, like, never stop, you know. And I should have never stopped doing Frenemy. That was a big mistake that I made just because of everything that was going on in my life. And so I took the last 7 years to just kind of like prioritize like my direction in fashion and design and what I wanted to do. Crypto led me to that, which was beautiful. It like took me out of the weed game, put me into NFTs. I'm an NFT artist, and like that's like really where I first started having success in crypto. And then that allowed me to realize like, oh, there was this, you know, what I was doing professionally was no longer aligned with who I was, you know, like being in the weed game for all those years was no longer serving me and fulfilling me. And I need to focus on my creative pursuit in fashion, which was what I came down to Los Angeles to do. So, which eventually led to the vision of Death Side. And so that's my new thing. So
I would like to do some more things with Death Side because my platform is going to be like more diversified.
Dope.
I'm a little offended you didn't bring me a hoodie today, or you know.
Well, I'm in the process of making new shit. We're all, pretty much sold out.
But
I'd
like to. I would 100% like to be a part of the Death Side journey.
Yes.
Where can they reach you at on Death Side?
We're just at Death Side on Instagram and deathside.com. So that was actually like one of the real like confirmations from the universe and moving forward with the brand is like when that came to me in meditation, like the name Death Side, which I didn't come up with. That was like given to me by the universe, and then to be able to get like the actual Instagram and the URL was like triple confirmation. Like, oh yeah, move forward with this brand. So I'm super hyped on it. I'm gonna get you some shit. Don't worry about that. Yeah. And we'll make it pop.
Let's do it, brother.
Hell yeah. Thank you for having me.
We have to roll too, because I don't think I've rolled with some black belts, but like I've never rolled with Cron Gracie black belts.
Oh yeah, you gotta come train LA Jiu Jitsu, Cron Gracie. That's what's up. And anytime you want to come train, like it's on. Yeah,
for sure, brother.
I dug you.
Hell yeah. Appreciate you.
Hell yeah.